This episode of Idle Thumbs is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the easiest, fastest, most reliable, most affordable way to create a portfolio, blog, personal website of any kind.
Who knows? Just whatever you want.
Whatever you want to make.
If you start your free trial today at squarespace.com, enter the offer code THUMBS for 10% off your first purchase. It's May 4th, 2017.
And this is Idle Thumbs 307. I'm James Spafford.
I'm Nick Brecken.
And I'm Jake Rodkin.
And Chris Remo is not here. But James is.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
Check out that. That was a good
checking
intro.
it out.
Yeah.
How's it going, Spaff?
I'm good at Remo. I should just be him.
You are him.
Okay, good.
So, Chris, what great game have you been playing this week that will bolster this episode and give us content?
Test failed.
Oh, boo. Probably Zelda if it was Chris.
That's true.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's actually true.
But I'm not him.
Yeah.
I did play What Remains of Edith Finch.
Mm.
Did you play that game?
I didn't.
You're in the credits of this game.
I am.
You played it.
I did play it. I played it. The is Giant Sparrow? That's the name of the developer. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. They did Unfinished Swan.
They did Unfinished Swan. Yeah. No, they had me and actually Chris both play through it like 2 Marches ago. They had the game at GDC, and I played through an old version of it back then.
I wonder how much it changed since then.
I don't know. I'm not gonna be an NDA buster and get into that. But
yeah.
So what is it? I am only vaguely aware of what this game is.
You are. I'm completely not mentally prepared to.
It's fine.
Talk about it, but it is a kind of a walking simulator on the outside, as you would say. I know you're
sort of
a very big fan of walking and simulations.
The sort of outer shell of it presents like a Gone Home or something, where you're a person who goes back to an old family home in the Pacific Northwest, and it's a big, huge mansion. But there's it reveals itself to be far more than that as you get into it.
You're, as you say, you're like visiting an old family home where, as it is kind of unveiled to you, all your old family members' rooms are still intact from the day that they died, and each of them has an interesting tale of how they met their demise, which you experience kind of firsthand. But each story is like a completely different mechanic. Like it's actually a whole bunch of different narrative-driven kind of experiences, kind of sewn together.
I can't remember who said it, but someone on Twitter described it as a walking simulator that is that is a container for narrative Wario Ware.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
There's like a ton of these vignettes that are each like 5 to 20 minutes long, and they're all, the presentation aesthetically is very different, the mechanics are very different, and the whole sort of fun of the game is when you advance through the house and you find another one of these rooms with a story in it, you don't know what to expect, and the whole point is to sort of sit down and play through a new strange experience.
Yeah, it's like super dreamy and kind of trippy, like drifting in and out of all these different people, but all the stories are connected because it's your family, and the structure of it each time you complete one is you like fill in a little spot on your family tree. You're like, oh cool, that's.
Do you fill it in yourself? Did you like?
It brings up a little pencil-driven thing. That's why I'm like, going.
You don't have to do like the lotto scratcher coin.
But the controls for like accessing that stuff are more mechanical than you expect. Like that menu, it is a menu. Obviously, it comes up with the book of this family tree, but to put it away isn't like close. It's like analog stick. Like my hand is moving this out of my face. But each one is so good. I really enjoyed it's really easy to blast through the whole thing in, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours or something.
Can you Spaff? Can you give an example of like one? I'm just curious because I don't
think of the least
one
kind
mechanic
of spoilery ones.
Yeah.
some are really short and some are much longer. Like one of them is a comic book that you flip through the pages of.
The E3 demo that like has been at a billion events is probably an easy one to talk about because it's just been shown a billion bajillion times.
Is that the one where you're a cat?
It's like a kid's story of themselves, but they're sort of. It seems like they're imagining themselves as animals that they see out the window of their bedroom, and as you're reading the story, you become those things. But then it's sort of the character the animal that you're playing sort of transforms as the story changes, right? Like
you're like a cat, and then you're walking around on some branches chasing a bird, and then you catch the bird and you become an owl, and you're flying around and you're trying to like dive down on rabbits and grab them up. And then you become a shark.
You become a shark in the middle of the woods and have to roll down a hill until you get into the ocean, and then you're swimming around underwater.
That's the one thing I've seen of this game.
Yeah,
I saw a
something
GIF of a shark rolling down a hill.
And you sort of think, okay, maybe this is the game where I play as a bunch of different creatures and I control them, whatever, get fucked, that story ends, and then you're back in the walking simulator sort of frame story, and then you find something else, and like you said, you're in a comic book, or like it's a weird, and that's more sort of like panel-based vignettes or something, and just, it doesn't deviate too heavily out of like narrative first person as a thing to play with, but they push the limits, at least when I played it a year ago, farther out than you would expect, and there's weird exceptions to it and stuff. You can't talk about it too much because it's the whole sort of the thing that it's just it's a content factory that you consume.
I don't want to spoiler stuff. I do want to share one that's much later in the game that is just, I'm trying to think of a way of talking about it without actually spoiling it, but it manages to kind of convey the idea that a person has a menial job packing salmon into cans or whatever. His job is like cutting the heads off of fish, but also whilst doing that is daydreaming about this fantasy
that was
land.
The best part of the game, and I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah, I'm not going to go much further than that, but it does such a good job of putting you in that place where you're doing two things at once, and a menial task becomes a background thing that you're still functioning and doing with like one part of your brain, but you're also doing this entire
you're sort of like constructing this imagined world as this character. That was
amazing.
That was easily the standout thing in the game for me.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, it's it still very much is 100% a narrative game that you walk through and experience and complete its goals. So like if the story that it's telling doesn't resonate with you, there's not anything else to hold on to in this game, which is true of any game that's 100% narrative. But like it's beautiful visually. Like it's funny. The other game that's come out in the last year that has a beautiful old house that you wander around in and is creepy as fuck is Resident Evil VII. And the Resident Evil VII house and the Edith Finch house have their architectural layout is very similar, but also like it turns out that what I like is walking around a big old house that's really, really well rendered. Like everything in Edith Finch,
I've got a game for you.
Is very just like pristinely put together. Like it's sort of like a sort of dark fable version of a Wes Anderson style presentation almost, where it's not like, it doesn't have the sort of everything is very prim and forward, like 1 point perspective Wes Anderson stuff, but just the like, it's a house steeped in history of this eccentric family that gets weirder the farther back into their history you go and stuff.
Yeah.
But, and it's also Wes Anderson-y only in that everything is super detailed. You don't feel like there's tons of duplicated props in this game. You don't feel like there's things that are put there for no purpose. Like, again, they're doing a very specific thing narratively, and there are people who I'm sure are just going to bounce right off this game and go, this is not what I'm interested in. But if it grabs you, I'm sure that there are people who are just going to be super into it.
It's for people that just thought Gone Home was that Ghost game. This is that Ghost game. Basically, like, this is much closer to that.
If you played Gone Home, then when you got to the Ouija board, you became Uncle Oscar. That would be a really troubling storyline, actually. That would be terrible.
Yeah. That walking around narrative thing really helps to hold it all together really well, though, I think. And really, draws you into each. Because each story is, it's not just a cool story or a weird game. It's how the person died or how someone in that story died, and so they're all kind of crazy and weird and dark, or
Yep. They're all gonna have an end.
Yeah, and so you're kind of like, oh, wonder how this person died.
Yep.
I liked it a lot. Please play it.
Okay.
Sure.
Do it.
I think I will.
Sound. I heard. Hype man. You've been walking around some other games.
Yeah. Jake and I played the Prey demo.
The Prey demo, because Prey comes out the day after this episode comes out. I think it comes out this Friday.
Yeah. Yeah.
May the 5th be with you.
How many Preys are we in now?
So this is Prey. This is the third Prey,
right?
This
is the second Prey.
Oh right, God! The first Prey came out.
No.
The second
Prey came out, which was the
right.
Oh,
I
God,
mean, 90s Prey. Did 90s Prey ever ship?
Yeah.
It did?
Yeah. You played as the Native American.
But then there was
Tommy.
Wait, no, sorry.
There's so you're abducted by aliens. And
okay, hold on. There's GT Interactive Prey that was teased at E3 like 2000.
Oh, wait.
There's that
came out, but it was a vastly different. I think it got complete.
No, I'm talking about there's like Quake 1, 2 era Prey released by that was hyped up huge by GT Interactive. It was like
with the portals and
geometry.
But then that game died and went into like a 3D Realms nap for like half a decade or more. Then came back and did ship as the game where you play as the Native American guy's name I can't remember, and you're in the bar and Blue Oyster Cult's playing and you get ripped out and abducted by aliens and there's portals. That wasn't like up-resed thing that delivered on the original Prey that was promised in the early 2000s or late 90s.
Yeah. And weirdly, that game had a really long demo that everybody played. And that was like an amazing slice of a game that like didn't really fulfill its promise. I'm sure that won't be the case with this game, but I think that game was very notable for like having an hour-long crazy demo.
There was a first, because Prey was a 3D Realms thing, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and it was living in the same weird. I don't know if it was developed by 3D Realms, but I think it was in their sort of stable of these are licenses that are, I believe it was.
They sold the license eventually.
Yes,
but
it felt like it
was like a Duke Nukem era, like
exactly.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And then it turned out that I feel like that was I can't remember enough about it, but I feel like it was another one of those games that George Broussard and Scott Miller kept being like, oh well, someone's working on it, huge wink, and then eventually when it showed up later as a game that existed. And it was really ambiguous at the time. I remember, and that was like E3 2005 when Prey was being demoed. Like, has this literally just been churning in development, or did it just get a hard cut and die for 3 or 4 years? Then someone picked it up. But whatever.
And now it's back.
Sure.
There was going to be a sequel to that died.
Right.
This new Prey
that was demoed at E3.
Yes.
Wait, really?
This
Prey
new
2, Prey 2, which was being made by Human Head, which was about a sci-fi bounty hunter on a planet where you track down like targets and stuff.
Prey is like gunning for the sort of the StarCraft Ghost Award for games demoed at E3 the most times that didn't ship.
It is amusing to me that it went from Prey to Prey 2 and now we're back to Prey.
But that was after Prey.
Is it just called Prey now?
Yeah, yes, just Prey.
So there was Prey, the GT Interactive Prey, then there was Prey, the one that actually shipped, then there was Prey 2, the Human Head Prey 2, and now we're back to Prey.
God, I should have worn my Prey 2 shirt today. Why didn't I do that? What a disaster.
Anyway, we've talked about Prey and Prey 2 enough times. We should talk about Prey.
Oh, I guess so.
What a fucking disaster.
So you play as a guy, a Native American in
Yeah, it was a game they demoed at E3, but I don't think it came out. Anyway, there's this new game, Prey.
What's happening? This game really does not want to be made.
This game definitely does want to be made.
I guess it really wants to be made.
The new Prey.
It was made by Arcane.
It's Arcane
in Austin.
Yeah, and it has absolutely nothing to do with any previous Prey games. I mean, maybe there's going to be something revealed in the game, but in interviews they've literally said we had the brand and we thought the name was really cool, so we applied it to the game that we're telling. I mean, the thing that it has in common with previous Prey games, I guess, is that it just is outrageous, highly designed science fiction premise. The end.
Yeah. I can't tell you a fucking thing about it other than the impossible geometries, the Native American guy, and the alien.
The original Prey, its whole big deal was we have portals. Like before,
they would do things like they would I remember the one scene that I have any memory of. It always is like you go through a portal. like you see. Well, first you see like a desk with like a box on it, and then like there's like
you're talking about
scale,
original Prey, right?
Yeah, original Play, and there's like a
wait,
scale model of there's like a scale model of like a house, and you go through the portal, and then you're now in the house as like a tiny man, and then a giant alien walks up, and that was basically that game. It
like
was just
one of
sort
those
of lots
like
of
NYU like experimental gameplay.
or like a bunch of like
they
like
just
a
got
mod
into the fact
or
that
something,
you can
like
that weird thing by Peter Molyneux. And
yes,
yeah.
Oh man, the thing where you build a chair out of cubes and
The
it becomes
Room?
a chair. Yeah,
or whatever, which was actually made by the.
yeah.
Anyway,
Enough. Oh my god. So this new Prey by Arcane. I played the demo. I played it all the way through. I apparently did not scratch the surface of this demo because this demo is insane. I talked to Steve Gaynor, and he said he's put 6 hours into this demo.
Oh, man.
Like, just strip mining all content out of it.
Wow.
This new Prey game, I've read not very much about it. I went into the
Yeah, I haven't
demo
either.
pretty cold/blind. It seems
Cold and blind.
I went through.
blind.
This game seems like it is Arcane's ridiculous, like, love letter / pastiche to every descendant of the Looking Glass school and every descendant of Half-Life.
Yeah.
It is a crazy. It's just like
I remember.
it's a Prey. Fuck it. It's
Yeah.
in this video game. It's a strange experience.
Yeah. I was still there when they were like booting this up at Bethesda, and I remember
Of course you would, because they've been working on it since the beginning of time.
But no, I remember like hearing like I was like, well, what's the deal with this Prey thing? Like, what are they doing with it? It's not gonna be a sequel anymore, right? I mean, because they're rebooting Arcane, and that was exactly what I heard, which is like, oh, they're full on just making a Looking Glass game, and that's what it's gonna be. And I was like, oh man, I'm glad that sounds much better than it could be.
All of the E3 demos and trailers for this showed. Or not E3, whatever it was, the trailers and sort of just the video marketing before this demo showed stuff that made it look kind of like it might be a horror game. It also looked like you could sort of like possess or become inanimate objects and run through the world in them, because they're sort of shape-shifting and hiding in plain sight is part of the, like, what the aliens of this world do that you're fighting.
Yeah.
But the demo had none of that. However, what it did have is, like, outrageous halfway between plasmids and classic upgrade chain upgrades. It had a grid-based old-ass, like, inventory, like, slot system.
Ooh.
It has the sort of physics pick up and throw things of Half-Life and walking simulators.
Oh yeah,
it
you
has
can pick everything up.
text in a billion books you can read. It has, like,
Flushable toilets.
It's just in its
Does it
zone.
have working mirrors?
Okay,
It doesn't.
it does not have working mirrors, but what it does have is glass windows that surround all of this world, and you don't actually know if they're holographic projectors or not, and you can find out by smashing them, because nearly all glass in this game that is interior to the space station on which the game is set is breakable.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it seems like they're going very deep into you can fuck with everything and get weird results.
But it is hard. What is this game?
It's a first-person science fiction sort of conspiracy thriller action game. Yes, it's a shooter. It's a very sort of like
It's BioShocky.
It's BioShocky, but it's BioShocky, but
Is it more Dishonored-y? Like, there's a stealthy RPG.
Well, I think there is a stealth like background mechanic, but that's not really what it feels like.
It seems
feels
like it's
more like
action,
Half-Life,
action
BioShock
combat,
kind of.
reactive stuff. But it has. It seems like they're putting a stake in the ground of this is more old school than some of the newer ones by way of including things like a grid-based sort of Resident Evil or old Looking Glassy inventory. It has
a health system that doesn't regenerate.
A health system doesn't regen.
Which, man, I got owned by that because I don't think about it anymore. I just assume it's going to regenerate, and then I just died, I went, oh fuck, I got to like use a health pack.
Item and ammunition fabrication and crafting. Like it's got like harvesting raw materials, then synthesizing them into things, then building things out of them. Like
it's got those in-world Doom 3 screens as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
there's building?
No, I mean like you like building items, not like it has base building. No,
like
it doesn't have base
crafting.
building. Yeah, there's a crafting of equipment. It has
not building.
But then it has a lot of the sort of mechanical things that you associate with like a shock game.
Yeah.
But then the aesthetic setting of it feels like this crazy visual pastiche of like the sort of Art Deco-y stuff from BioShock plus it clearly has pulled a lot of inspiration from Rapture. I just said BioShock twice, but not just the Art Deco stuff, but sort of the structure of the spaces, the place that the big main lobby looks like the New Year's Eve ballroom architecturally, but in space. But then also it feels like there's sort of like Black Mesa or Aperture Science aesthetic stuff to it, because like when you get into the science lab stuff, it feels very, very Valve-y.
The first 30 minutes feels incredibly Valve-y.
It's just and I mean it's an arcane game, and the characters have a little bit of a sort of Dishonored aesthetic to them. Like it just feels like they've basically just like supermarket swept every major single player first person game since around System Shock 2 and are just picking the stuff they like and putting them into one game. It's a weird experience. I can't actually tell, like, it doesn't feel super cohesive to me personally, but I also have never gotten into any of the immersive sim games that are more about the mechanical side, and I mean BioShock they stripped so much of that stuff down. BioShock is very arcadey compared to a lot of the other ones. It's like you can basically just blast the crap out of things and look at cool architecture in BioShock.
This is probably closer to System Shock.
It seems
that's
to be
what I was going to say, right? So like BioShock in space is System Shock. So why is this different to that? How is it different?
God, I haven't played System Shock in a while. I mean it feels very similar. You're hacking a lot of stuff. You've got the same kind of tech trees. I mean that's my memory of System Shock. I mean, like reading emails and just weird fucking.
The way the story is told just feels more of the BioShock Half-Life style. There's big cinematic NPCs that walk up and talk to you, and sort of like characters like sort of Barney their way for you to get through security doors and stuff. Like it just the way that the world is paced out until you get to the big open spaces feels just like it's influenced by a bunch of newer stuff.
So I started out playing this game by, of course, entering 0451 into every single keypad and being really frustrated that none of the initial keypads worked with 0451. And then, like, 50 minutes into the demo, you get to, like, basically the most important.
It's
your office. It's the first crit. And I entered 0451, and it opened, and I was like, yes! And then I walk in, and then you play a video file, and the video file, like, ends for, like, a weird system reason or something, and then it says, disconnected from the Looking Glass servers. And I was like, oh, you son of a... Like, fuck you. It is really, like, very blatant in what it is trying to be, but it's good.
I don't know. I feel like we're failing to actually explain what this is.
Enjoying the failure quite significantly.
It's just one of these. I don't know.
It does feel a little bit like Half-Life 1 to me. I mean, it really does.
The enemies are basically head crabs.
They're basically head crabs, and what they do, they're called mimics, and they skitter around on the ground. They have 4 legs like head crabs. And then sometimes they'll just run away from you.
Yep.
And then when you walk into the room that they ran into...
They run away, then morph into an inanimate physics object.
Yeah.
So then the room is just empty until you get near them or wait too long or accidentally throw something at them, and then it comes to life.
And so what they've done is they've designed levels with pairs of things everywhere. Like you're never going to find like a drinking fountain that's just like a single drinking fountain. There's always the 2 things next to each other all the time.
So that you can question it?
Yeah.
Is that
it's really good.
Is that a thing?
Yeah. And they give you this weird glue gun that just shoots glue, so that like I was just shooting glue at
it
everything
shoots, like, foam
because
I inflates and immobilizes. So like if you all you have at the beginning is a wrench, like in the style of BioShock
in, like,
or
Half-Life.
Yeah. So you can run up to them and just sort of
Quake 1.
Yeah, I guess. You have an axe. Yeah. You can just beat on them like you do a head crab. But the only other real, I mean, as the demo goes on, you get some more stuff, but at the beginning, you basically have that goo gun that just shoots foam that inflates. So you're
like one of those things where you fill up a gap in a building.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you'll just see like a pile of towels on the floor goes blah, and turns into a monster that starts running away or towards you. Then you just go crazy firing this goo at it, and in the hopes that you can then just sort of smash it and then loot it.
Wasn't there a Team Fortress mod or role for Team Fortress 2?
Prop Hunt is the Team Fortress mod. In Prop Hunt, one person is a TF2 character, and everyone else gets disguised as a random Team Fortress level item, and your
Like a
objective
crate.
is just to
That's
go
right.
and crouch. That was very
Forgot
much
about
like there was a Quake 2 mod, I think it was, maybe Quake 1, called Crate DM, where it's just a warehouse full of crates like Raiders of the Lost Ark, and everyone spawns as a crate. So good.
So
This
Prey
game,
2 is,
this game,
that.
it,
Oh, Prey,
it,
sorry.
it, yeah, Prey. It feels like
Pray for.
like they probably weren't literally inspired by those things, but the sort of like, how do we make lemonade out of the lemon that all props in video games are the same object repeated over and over again? The monsters can turn into them, and it creeps you out. Is a good thing, and as we know from trailers, you eventually gain the power to do that. It turns out because was it at the Game Awards? There was some Prey video this year that just has the player turn into like a coffee mug or something, and then just sort of roll through a vent or something, and it was just like, okay, that's fine. I guess I'll do this because, of course, you can mod the shit out of yourself and give yourself all sorts of weird abilities. And
I think the one video I saw, somebody turned themselves into a banana and then found a way to get to space, and then they were just tumbling through space as a banana. I don't know. I feel like, I agree. Like, I don't know if we're doing a great job summing this up, but also I'm not going to do what Steve did because I am having a really difficult time playing this game with a console controller. It feels like a game that you much want a mouse for.
Yeah.
The fact that you can pick everything up in the world, but you have to slowly scroll to it with an analog stick makes me want to kill myself.
I'm looking forward to just playing through the full game on Steam. Have you read at all about... So, this game... I could sort of feel their commitment to the overlapping systems of this game when I was playing it, just like realizing once I broke out of like a place that I was trapped in through like the obvious way, I looked around and went, oh, I could have actually done this as a physics action to any, like, all windows can break.
Right.
And, you know, there's a lot of things where just anything can happen. There's huge objects all over the world that look like you shouldn't be able to physics them, but the UI says once you have like strength upgrade 3, you can just pick up huge like pieces of furniture and physics them around if you want, whatever. But people have escaped out of the demo area, and there's more game available inside of this build than there should be. Like, I don't know how far you can get before you actually run out of content that you've downloaded, but like, there are people who have, like, there's an elevator shaft that you can't really climb, but you can use the goo gun to build
they're just
a set of
speed running the
stairs
demo.
and you can get out of there. There's also a video that I saw where someone smashed a window to someone's office, squirted goo onto a wall, and then used it to hit it at a grazing angle with the crossbow to hit a button to unlock a door to that office that's not accessible in the demo.
Wow.
So there's all sorts of stuff that people are doing already inside of this demo.
That's really good.
Okay, this is more interesting.
And Steve said that he saw a video. This is a total physics exploit, but it bodes well for the future of this game being a source of insanity, where someone wedged themselves between like a terminal and a locked door, like that you weren't supposed to get through because it was filled or it was blocked by things that your like encumbrance and strength weren't leveled up to. But someone managed to sidle into it, squirt the goo gun against the wall, and then physics impulse themselves through the clipped through the door into the other room,
man.
due to sort of just like inflating
Just a
goo
weird,
between
like,
themselves
yeah.
and the door until the game broke. So
I wish that was just the game. I guess it is kind of.
I suspect that, like, you know, I mean,
the fact that you
like,
can be anything,
like,
pick up anything,
like high
Goo
level
around.
high level Dishonored play is already really impressive, and this game feels like they're like, who knows what the real game will be like, but it feels like their intent with what's in this demo is to enable really weird high-level immersive sim sort of like mucking with the space. Like
mucking.
The sort of lobby that the demo includes has a bazillion locked doors who all just have a note that says inaccessible in demo. So it's not like they don't reveal how you get into any of these things or what, but the impression that I got is that they're intending it to be a relatively open space over the course of the game. I don't know. It was a lot more than I was expecting in that game, in the demo.
Yeah.
Just
Yep. No, it's
What did you think, Nick? I talked the whole time just now.
No, I don't know if I have much more to add. I'm excited to play more of it on PC.
Yeah.
I think like I had no expectations going into this because I knew very little, and I just kind of thought it was going to be a System Shock thing. I think that you're probably right that it's more of a pastiche than I expected. Like, I really liked the Half-Life-y stuff. Like, I really it's hard because I don't want to spoil that sort of like middle section of the demo that kind of gets a little bit crazy.
I hope that the full game sort of ebbs and flows between the sort of big open sort of non-linear explorer space. Then you can get back into some of that sort of Valve-y stuff because they're
doing a really good job with it.
It was fun. It felt successfully sort of like cyberpunk Twilight Zone or J.J. Abrams or something, of just like not in a shitty way. I'm not saying that in a dismissive way. I mean, like it's cheesy. It's a science fiction conspiracy action video game.
Yeah.
But the way that they let you sort of play with things as the demo unfolds was fun. Like I was looking forward to what was next over and over again.
Weirdly, the game that it reminded me of the most, other than Half-Life, was Fallout 3. Like that game also felt like it had the confidence to kind of like take a beat before it sort of shifted into its main kind of thing. But I agree. I hope they have other sections of the game that are like that, and it's not just the sort of intro.
It seems likely. I mean, like the way that the story of this game works, you get the impression that you'll eventually hit an objective that is like, and now you're in the story part for a while, and cool shit happens, and then you're back out picking up rubber hoses and bindles of cable from things to turn into cubes.
Yeah. Which is like that. If that is the case, that would be very like Half-Life 1, right? Like my memory of Half-Life 1 and what a lot of games like don't do at this point. They seem like they either lean really heavily into kind of the hub space, like explore the game at your own pace kind of thing, or the opposite, which is just much more linear. But like I felt like with Half-Life 1, you kind of had the feeling of like I'm in this massive.
The hub spaces were never actually that big in practice, but they still gave you that feeling of like you got to turn on that valve so that tube can have water going through it, but to do that you've got to go under this grate, and it felt like you were sort of running errands all throughout an abandoned lab, and then then finally open the door, and then you get into a little weird story corridor,
right? And like occasionally it just felt like you were just sort of every now and then popping your head up above water and like, oh, they're like weird soldiers landing now, but then maybe I don't see them for like an hour, and like just this sort of background story of everything was being told in a really interesting way, and it feels like this game has the potential for that because you're a silent protagonist on a fucking in like a weird.
Are you a silent protagonist?
Yeah, in a weird like
you talked.
Oh, you know what?
You might speak.
You might speak, but you don't speak much.
No,
I think you only speak to yourself in that video. I think that video is the only time that you speak.
I thought that's not you speaking to yourself. That could be anybody.
I could be wrong.
Richter.
Anyway, we don't remember, but whatever. It's nice that they put the demo out with only a week or less than a week till the game comes out, because I'm right now going, that was a really cool demo, and I have no idea how long the game will be or how well it will sustain or like what my interest in it will be. But the sort of ambition and weird shit on display, it was like really refreshing.
Yep. I'm excited to play it.
Also, like, you don't get a lot of crazy single-player campaigns of this style that sim ship on PC and console and are like just biting off of this much weird stuff. Like, I definitely didn't possess any physics objects and roll around in this demo. So like the fact that I did instead the entire vocabulary of immersive sims, but know that stuff is still in the game.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Yeah.
It's really weird to me that you can become a coffee cup.
I guess that's what you become. I don't know.
It's so weird. That's so weird.
So yeah, it also just includes the entire scope of the game, everything inside of this game.
Right, yes. Everything and Stanley Parable.
And
yeah.
Oh, actually, when we're talking about Edith Finch, the thing that Edith Finch kind of actually reminds me of the most is the beginner's guide. As far as sort of you're taken on a tour of some like fictional life or lives, but as that happens, you know that every time you progress to a new space, a new premise will appear, and the way that you sort of get to the end of it or the things that it's trying to tell you are different. Like that, it has that feeling to me of sort of like you're just sorry, I had forgotten about that. I had forgotten about that game until
that's a good way to
like, what is it? What is Edith Finch like? Oh, it's kind of got that diorama feel of the beginner's guide.
Based on what you guys said, seems like it's a good way to describe it.
Yeah. We're all talking about games that no one can understand.
Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
Except that's not true, because we're like, one is a walking simulator. It's kind of like the beginner's guide, but
it isn't.
It's not at all. And one of them is kind of just BioShock.
And one of them is all games.
The aesthetic of Prey, parentheses 2017,
yeah,
reminds me so much of the first trailer to Tacoma.
It does.
It's got that sort of arched glass and brass trim.
Yep.
Kind
With
of
the deco,
slightly retro.
lettering.
Yeah.
The font
It's really weird.
Yeah.
Like it looks
I had
like
that same
it
thought
looks like a
too.
giant version of the original Tacoma demo, which Tacoma doesn't look like anymore. Tacoma, their newer stuff is more industrial looking, but yeah. So I assume that they just, when they put Tacoma under the knife and changed it, Steve licensed the original design to Arcane for
that's a very nice way of putting that.
At great expense.
Right.
And now Steve is a multimillionaire after he's like, finally I've cracked the Prey IP.
Right. Well, he traded actually for the canceled Prey.
Steve's got the canceled Prey.
The canceled Prey aesthetic.
They did
it
an
was an
asset
even
swap.
trade. There was no royalties
Thinks he's getting a
involved.
sweet deal, but he forgot to put those parentheses
GT
in there.
Interactive's,
What is this?
Oh man,
Shit, this is.
I would be so happy if the Fulbright team just said, you know what, we're gonna make a spiritual successor to the canceled 1999 GT Interactive Prey.
Yeah.
Fine. Things that will never happen include that, but like
They could, though.
just those
They
guys,
could do it.
Those guys just go make a No One Lives Forever spiritual successor. You're listening,
No.
Steve. Just go do that. Put a gun in your game.
And then you guys have to do StarCraft Ghost. Campo style.
That's a game jam. StarCraft Ghost jam, where just everyone's game is called StarCraft Ghost, and you just
Ghost game.
Yeah.
Should we take a break?
Yes, we should. We need to.
That's
We
excellent.
do.
This episode of Idle Thumbs is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is an amazingly easy to use just web development platform. Like you can make a website, store, blog, portfolio, all sorts of websites with it, with templates that are responsive from mobile to desktop. Just they look good without you having to try very hard.
It's what you wanted really badly in the early 2000s.
Yes, but instead you had some real nasty stuff. My wife, Dana, used Squarespace to make the website for our wedding. I don't think that Dana
man.
has ever made a website, maybe like she had to in school in the 90s, but I totally thought that I would be the guy who had to make the website for our wedding because I am me.
You're the web guy.
I'm the web guy. But Dana said she would do it and went to Squarespace and put together a really just nice looking, super easy to use site that our parents were able to navigate just fine to find all the information they needed about our wedding. And she threw it together in like a couple hours in an evening. And it was a really good
I assumed you had made that because it was good.
Squarespace. Yeah, no, it wasn't me. It was Squarespace.
So there you go. That's
Yeah. So if you're interested in getting married and putting together a really nice wedding website super fast and cheap, go to squarespace.com and start your free trial. You can actually poke around and put a whole site together just in their trial mode. But if you're interested in really getting into it, use the offer code THUMBS at checkout to get 10% off your first order.
Thanks, Squarespace.
Squarespace.com,
Thank you.
offer code THUMBS. This episode of Idle Thumbs is also brought to you by ProFlowers.
Professional flowers.
They're professional flowers sent wherever you'd like. ProFlowers is
It's an online flower shipping
online florist,
company.
basically.
Yes,
I mean, yeah,
it's your online florist.
It's proflowers.com. It's I don't know. I mean, they deliver really beautiful flower arrangements in vases.
Yes, we had some delivered to us recently, Jake.
Yes,
and
I think all of our respective homes right now have.
Actually, the way I said that, it sounds like I'm living with you or something.
No. we have homes full of beautiful looking flowers. They
come in a box, which is nice because it protects them. You open it up. There's a vase inside with the flowers in it. There's food that you can put in the vase. You trim them. You put them in there. And you're done.
They last a long time. They look really nice for quite a while.
Having that vase is a nice little touch.
It's good.
It's really nice to just open that up and not have to worry about where to put them in.
I have a feeling that something's happening soon. That why these guys
my
might be
birthday.
sponsoring.
No, my birthday's a ways away. Don't send me flowers. It's because Mother's Day is coming up.
It is.
So ProFlowers has a great deal actually. If you want to get 100 blooms for mom with a free glass face starting at $19.99. That's the deal.
100 of them.
100 blooms. Oh no, this is blooms as in flowers. You will not get 100.
Okay,
100,
all right.
100.
Thank God.
For
Thank
100 gold blooms. No, for 100 blooms in a vase at $19.99. If you go to ProFlowers.com, click the microphone and type in thumbs, you can get that deal. It's a totally good thing to send your mom for Mother's Day. Like, it's beautiful. It's what a mom likes. It's just a nice thing to send, and you can do it really easily by just going to ProFlowers.com, click on that sweet, sweet microphone because of podcasts, and type in thumbs because that's our show.
Especially do this if you never send your mom flowers. It'll be an even greater
That is totally
surprise.
true. As a person who rarely sends my mom something good on Mother's Day other than a phone call, the ProFlowers move has been done in the past, and it is a totally good move. I highly recommend it. ProFlowers.com, click that microphone, type in thumbs.
Get your blooms.
$20 for some blooms.
Mom's happy.
She loves it.
Are we back? We got to come back sometime, Jake.
Oh, we never left, Nick.
Please, we got to be back.
Okay, we're back.
We got
All
things
right.
to do.
Like record a podcast.
Yeah, we're doing it. We're recording it.
Gotta go and
Nothing.
probably live stream something, Nick. Is that what you're gonna do after this?
No, I haven't live streamed in weeks. I've been sick. I've been an ill person.
What happened?
So I got sick.
Who made you sick? What happened?
I don't know. I went out with Chris Remo, and then the next day I was sick.
Well,
that is a true story.
And now he's not here.
Yeah. This is very suspicious.
Yeah, I agree.
Where did he go though? Maybe that has something to do with it.
Smuggler's Cove for like a minute. We just met Chris for like a minute.
Dirty old. Wait, you met Chris for 1 minute?
Like
in
one
Smuggler's Cove?
one drink's worth, and then
Of time.
I was sick.
Drinks
so
worth.
I feel like
I met up with Drinksworth, the butler.
You're like just
Actually-
describing the story of the back of Idle Thumb's Patreon postcards.
yeah.
Is that what it says on there?
No, not literally, but it's functionally that. What, Nick?
Speaking of me being sick, I do have one game I wanted to recommend before we
Being sick.
Get into whatever the rest of this podcast is.
Yeah.
While I was sick, I was looking for a sort of like relaxing video game to play as you do.
Yeah, the sick game.
Yeah, you know, the sick game. You don't want to stress yourself out when
you
you're
don't want
sick.
you want to think too much.
Yeah, you just want to think just enough, and it's got to be a game that you can play with a gamepad because you're in bed,
You're like
reclining.
lying. You're like
you're just
at
like
a weird angle.
Yeah, nothing too intense because you might need to get up and
TV is at a weird angle to your head.
Yeah, no.
So what did you pick?
I picked this game that came out last year to very little notoriety, I feel, but I'm actually really happy with
The
it.
Witness.
No, it's
award-winning.
You may have heard of it. It's a game called Steep. Did you hear about this game?
EEP.
Yeah, STEEP. It's an Ubisoft game. It's a winter sports game, I guess is what you would call it.
What?
Yeah, I
Okay.
heard of this.
It's good. So the concept was what? What, Spaff? I
When you
enjoy
said
winter
steep,
sports.
I was like,
all
what
right.
could this possibly be about? Tea? And then it turns out that it's about something that's steep, like a fucking like a mountain.
Yeah,
Steep.
you are just
Wow. Okay. Cool. Winter sports. So
cool.
this is where
Real
you
cool.
go.
The tea game would have
I
been
like
cool,
this
but
idea of a tea game.
Not
Pray, the game where you
please,
become a
winter
cup.
sports.
Carry on.
No, you snowboard around in this game. It's good. It's an open world game, and it just looks like Skyrim, and you get sort of airlifted.
Like way more sick.
Well, yeah, clearly. No, it's actually So
When
I
you're
think
sick. You
Yeah.
gotta get the
God.
sick
Jesus. So
Chris leaves and just
Yeah.
the wheels don't even come off because they were never on.
No, yeah, the fire just doesn't get put out.
Yeah.
it just is allowed to burn. No, I thought, okay, there's a good chance that this will be like a Crazy Taxi soundtrack blaring in my face for 2 hours, and I'm like flying around in a wingsuit, and I hate it. But it wasn't that. It's actually a really relaxing game, you can just basically scroll around a giant open world map, and it's a 3D map. It's like Skyrim in the sense that you can kind of pan the camera around and look at all these different trails and areas of this sort of mountain in the Alps, and you just hit a button and then you get helicoptered in right on that spot. And then the game is kind of just whatever. Like, you don't really have to do anything.
That's right. How many tricks are available?
I mean, there are a few.
How many moves?
There are some moves, but
what
it's
was your
not
longest combo.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's that. Like, you can like,
but it's like relaxed.
But is it
but
just
really?
that?
It's not even like it's not even making a point of that. Like there is a the sort of tutorial guy that's like, Mickey, you better get your shit together. The Red Bull guy's gonna
Why is
be
it
here
Rick
like
from Rick and Morty?
It's my only voice. Like, it's all I can do. Shut up.
He's the Red Bull guy.
Yeah.
God damn it. Anyway.
Your experience sounds like it was a lot more just sort of you're just snowboarding around.
It's nice. You sort of like on the D-pad, you can rapidly switch between skiing, snowboarding, using a parachute.
Wait, your character can sort of
tobogganing,
just like mid-run, you can like Inspector Gadget your way into different
mid-jump. I mean, you've got all this stuff on your back all the time. You've got like a pair of skis and like a snowboard, and that's ridiculous.
So it's like weapon swapping.
It's
basically.
like weapon swapping, but what's cool is like one of them is just like walking. So you can just run around on this mountain.
So good.
What's
I'm
cool
sorry.
is
no.
one
Here's
of
the
them
other
is
thing.
walking.
You can change the time of day at will. You can change the sort of like atmospheric effects at will, and while you
walk around,
and you can just do whatever. It's cool.
No, that sounds really good.
It has the passive kind of like Far Cry 3. No, it's not even really Far Cry 3. It's more like Miasmata, actually. Not that you're actually triangulating.
It sounds
anything.
like sort of like like modern hunting games also are.
Yeah,
kind of
a little
this.
bit. You'll see kind of like an area of the map that you can pull up binoculars at any time, and if you're close enough to kind of this like gray shaded zone on the mountain, you can
like a fog of war area?
Yeah, kind of. You can hold down a button and then it sort of unlocks that area as kind of like a trail. And then as
Is there like survival mechanics in this?
No, there aren't any survival mechanics, but as you're playing, it is sort of like
I don't
massively
think there are any mechanics.
It's sort of like massively single player. Like occasionally you'll see people just skiing down the mountain, and then if you're close enough to them, you can like group up with them. But then also like there are kind of like challenge points where you'll just see like a little ring that you ski into, and then it says like, do you want to like do this challenge, which some of them are like trick challenges, some of them are just time trials, whatever. And then when you do that, it just loads in ghosts.
So does that all happen
against
in
other
the
people.
persistent open world space?
Yeah,
Okay.
it never breaks.
So this
you can just go to the top of the Alps and then ski to the bottom,
If
and the
this
entire
game
time you
had
can just kind of
humongous grind rails and also Run DMC came on when you did really well, this would be my ideal game.
it kind of does, Jake.
Yeah,
It kind of does.
Like,
you can do weird grinding.
I've talked about my love of the SSX series on this podcast too many times, and as those games got increasingly open world, they did not do what I wanted, which was basically pick a side. Either be an arcade racing game or be functionally what you're describing of just like, let me just chill out and snowboard forever. Because like there were some runs in the third SSX game, I think, which was the first open world one, where you could just go to the top of a mountain and ski down basically the entire game by choosing, like you'd get to junction points between runs and you could just sort of like go through the gates. And I really liked that. But I didn't like all of the sort of mid-2000s open world game. Everyone is texting you on your stupid cell phone all the time to get to races that will load stream you into the wrong place and all this
game
stuff.
Almost never bugs you at all.
That's
and
what
it's
I want.
so nice.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't really know what else to say. Like, it's got all kinds of like strange sort of extreme sports mechanics in it. Like, you can also just, by the way, like first of all, your character's wearing a GoPro all the time.
Of course.
And you can just hold down a button and then it switches to first person view, except it's not like a perfectly locked camera. It's literally
GoPro
just
view,
the
right?
GoPro view. So your arms and legs are just like flopping all over the place. Playing in that mode is insane, but also you can, anytime you're skiing or snowboarding or whatever, it's recording your path.
So
and then you can go to the map and it shows you like a trail almost as if it's like a ski trail on a mountain. and then you can either just like replay that, or you can like save it out to the community, and you can create your own like challenges out of your trail. So like if you just do like a weird thing and you go like, oh, that'd be really cool as like a thing that I want to like get better at, or like, you know, create as like a time trial, you can create it as like a time trial where there are checkpoints. You can sort of just say, I want this to be a more tactical thing where people can get to the goal however they want to. It's crazy. I don't know. It's really like, it's exactly like, without knowing anything about this game and just seeing the sort of like box art and like one screenshot, I was like, oh, I hope this game is just a thing where I can kind of just chill out and ski down a mountain, and then occasionally just put a weird wingsuit on and try and like pilot wings my way into like a leaderboard. And that's exactly what it is.
Crash into a leaderboard, or your way into victory? Which way did you mean there?
I meant it the other way, but yeah.
Mike,
I mean, you know what it is? You know what it is? It's here's what this game is. I just realized what it is. It's the what's the name of that goddamn game series that Chris and I played a lot of? Just Cause. It's Just Cause, whatever the recent one was. I think it was 3.
Anything about it?
I think it was Just Cause 3. Mm-hmm. It's just that without guns. Because that game is just all about like climbing up to the top of a mountain and then putting a wingsuit on and just kind of like doing a crazy thing, and they have different challenges, and like that was the fun of that game.
Except for that you would also then like grappling hook 2 helicopters together and all that stuff. That's not in this.
No.
But the part where you just experience the majesty of the out of doors however you want.
That's completely seamless and just looks pretty, and they just went all in on that stuff. And I don't know, I really like it. I feel like when this game came out, it didn't get well reviewed. I think people attacked like the trick system isn't, you know, crazy enough. Like, it's not Tony Hawk or SSX, so therefore, but like, I just really like that you're skiing down a mountain and it's quiet and you just hear birds and stuff, and then occasionally like an ambient music track will just sort of like slowly peek its way into the game. When does
the radio DJ like go, whoa, and like tell you about the race that's going to start?
Never.
Oh.
Unless you ask it to, and unless you like go to the map and click on a thing that is that, and then that happens.
Sure.
And then when you finish it, then he says like, oh, now you can go to the cool thing. You should try this trial over here on the other side of the mountain. But then that guy never comes up again until you want him to.
That's good.
It's very good.
Basically, you have to call him up.
Yeah, you have to call him.
You have to
say, like, lay it on me, and he goes,
whoa!
On a payphone?
Yeah, it's set at a time before cell phones. That's why it's so
good. And then
he
gives you a fucking assassination mission.
And then you can turn into a cup or a banana as you're like going down a sweet jump, and then become a banana and fly off into the sky and glue gun yourself a ramp or whatever you need to do.
That was bananas.
Uninstall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. What is that game called?
It's called Steep.
Steep. Oh yeah, of course, the tea game.
Yeah.
That's a slogan. Steep, the tea game.
The tea game.
They're still supporting this game. I feel like people just didn't buy it, but maybe they did. I hope they did.
It might be the sort of game that just has like a sort of secret, shallow but wide.
Yeah, I hope so.
Player base,
like people who only
dads
play that one.
They just released a free like second open world map that's Alaska, and I just went to that, and it was really good. And they just released it for free. I'm glad this game exists. It's actually very well done.
I'd really love if they could sneak some weird like. I don't know, like Gone Home, like I don't know, some like, or like you could encounter like a weird bear person from like that Herzog documentary or something. Just have some weird like narrative stuff like embedded weirdly around the world. Just,
you get into. You just sort of find the abandoned weird cabin out there, and then it's like,
and it's like Edith Finch all of a sudden.
If a space that is like you have to either really cleverly trick jump your way down, or equip snowshoes so you can climb up the hill to a location that you could not get to otherwise. Then there's a creepy cabin, and then it unlocks the true game.
And then you go back to skiing.
Then you go back to skiing, but you can just you find 2 or 3 of those around that sort of puts together. A story about how this resort was stolen out from its original owner by some shitty family member or whatever, and they're haunting it.
It's on Native American ground, so that prey can show up and show you his portals to
a space station.
Show you his portals.
Yeah. Check out my portal technology.
Check out my portals. Have you seen my portals?
A skiing game that also just has a portal that you go voomp into, and then you're some fucking
Alaska.
Oh my god!
you're in just
What, like
space.
it's like soaring around the world or something? Like all of a sudden you're just like, whoa! Now I'm in San Francisco.
full end of Monsters Incorporated. And then you're back on the ski slope. You're like, I'll never.
Jesus.
And then you'll never
Then you
see
just
that again.
vomit onto the snow and just black out.
And then oh, a race is about to start.
my life will never be the same. Oh, you better get started.
Steep.
Yeah,
That would actually just reveal that it's in the Assassin's Creed universe.
that's true.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what you've been playing. It
was
is a
in-
Ubisoft game.
you're in an Animus all
so
along.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, should we do some reader mail?
Yeah.
Read some
Weird.
reader
I'm going to
mail.
read a few reader mails.
It's time for reader mail.
Read by me, Chris Ramo.
Do you want to read them, Chris?
I think you should read them. I think
Okay.
it's a
You should read them,
special
Chris.
treat.
All right.
If you have an email for us, write us at questions at idlethumbs.net and we'll read it.
Well remembered.
Gotta plug the email address.
Yeah.
So this is from John. He
Hi,
says,
John.
"Hi, thumbs."
Hey, John.
There you go. First time, long time. Recently on Important of True, you asked about old predictions you made on podcasts from the past. Well, I just discovered the Kickstarter progress feed in my feed, and there's a little tidbit from 5 years ago. In the episode The Boot, the Obelisk, and the Eye, your guest Vincent Perea was describing his experience with The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword and how Link's shield can break. Jake suggested that they take a page from the book of Far Cry 2, and he went on to posit a situation where Link bends the Master Sword. Although I don't know yet that that's technically possible in Breath of the Wild, I'm marking it down as
Well,
accurate
Link,
prediction.
what's the Master Sword?
Bends it. Link bends the Master Sword.
Oh, like you dent it? Is that what I was
I don't know. I don't know.
Bends it like.
I wonder. Yeah, like what?
Takes it in
Yeah,
his
I
teeth
am.
or
I
something?
there's two parts of this. One, Zelda Far Cry 2 clearly. But yeah, I don't. I was curious, Jake. Where you?
I can't recall, and I have not listened to a progress cast since we recorded them. Although they
Yeah.
are available. I don't know if we've ever talked about that.
Oh, yeah.
But
You
the
should plug
progress
those.
casts, which was like 16 or maybe almost 20, sort of. They started off as 10-minute episodes. Then by the end, were basically full episodes of Idle Thumbs that me and Chris and Sean did during the Kickstarter. They were backer exclusives for like 5 years, and then we sort of fuck it and put them up on the Idle Thumbs website. So if you go to idlethumbs.net/shows, scroll down to the bottom, there's the Kickstarter cast, which is like a bunch of Idle Thumbs episodes from that era that you probably have never heard. And one of them has Vincent Perea, who he's a friend of Sean's, and he was the art director on a bunch of Disney mobile games like Where's My Water, but he did a piece of Kickstarter art for us, and it was a really good guest. And apparently nailed it. Breath of the Wild called during our Kickstarter exclusive content. That was the sort of content that people were really, you know, paying for
Yeah.
with that Kickstarter campaign.
yeah. Well, they got it.
And if you can bend that Master Sword,
I wonder what
you
the
guys.
fuck-
Yeah,
was
I'm
talking
sitting here
about?
trying to think like bend the sword.
I just finally.
That was a Wiimote game, right? Maybe you were like.
Maybe I was
don't
hoping
know,
that
like-
you'd get the Master Sword, then it would turn into the singing sword from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Right, yeah.
The true
I
Master
have no
Sword.
idea.
Breath of the Wild has failed to
Bend.
not be interesting to me still. I'm playing it.
You're still playing it?
I'm playing it at such a slow pace. Like I am.
So what you're saying is,
I'm
it succeeded to be interesting
Yes.
to you. Continuously.
It is
okay.
There are so many games of this style that wear out their welcome for me that in a way that Breath of the Wild has not. Like I've never taken my time with a game to the degree that I'm taking my time with this game. Like I'm just now finally fighting or like trying to defeat the first sort of like big stupid beast thing. I can't remember their names. Just a
The
great
first
beast.
enemy. You're finally doing.
No,
your
but, like,
first enemy.
I'm doing. I got real wrecked on that and decided that I would then just go aggressively explore parts of the world that I've not explored, and I'm finding all sorts of really good stuff. And like, I don't know, I feel like this sort of spoiler veil has not yet been lifted on this game enough that
Yeah.
like, I still don't want to talk about it. But geez, it's good to like a game as much as I'm liking it. Are you over it?
You know, a little bit, but only because I played so much of it. I played
I think I've
lot
probably
of it.
put fewer hours than either you or
I'm
Chris
gonna go
have
back
still.
to it like shortly, but I did need kind of a week
Yep.
to sort of step away from it. But did you see the DLC got announced? And it's actually it has a few things in it that I'm more
Horse
excited
armor.
about than.
No,
I mean,
there's
hero armor,
just
like
wanted horse
linked
armor.
armor, tingle armor.
The way that the DLC works is you pay, it's like $20, which is like basically a season
Yeah.
pass, and it's the only way to get it. This first DLC is just a bunch of miscellaneous stuff that they're adding to the game, and then the second DLC is, I think, additional narrative content and maybe additional map content.
Mm-hmm.
But this DLC, I was into it more than I thought I would be.
I
for
was
it just
too.
being sort of a smattering of stuff.
I really like the like the extra mechanics. I was not expecting. When they I think when they initially announced all this stuff, it was just known that this was like there are going to be some new like items and
they said
things,
new items
but,
in
like,
the first one and the new real core
it
content
sounded
in the
more
second
like
drop.
just armor, which that's in there. But then also they're adding a feature where it's going to track exactly where you've gone on the world
It
map.
has
for
been
200
tracking.
hours. Yeah, it has been tracking, but like for 200 hours of play,
like
which is-
reality.
which like
Yes.
I want that badly, just to know where I've been,
the map
so that I can
so the
go
map,
to the
when you
areas
have the
where
DLC, it'll show you where you have and haven't actually traveled in the world. The other thing that they're giving you is an arbitrary drop this anywhere in the world, and it stays on your map as a teleport point. So you can choose a home base location or just like
Yeah.
a place that's really annoying to get to that you wish you could get to for a while while you're trying to sort of do something. You can jump.
A Hearthstone.
I guess, yeah,
Basically.
yes. You can have a Hearthstone, but that, and then there's a bunch of armor that is ridiculous, including a Tingle costume.
Yeah,
That's the best
gotta
part.
get that
Yeah.
tingle
That's
costume.
exciting.
Yeah, full Tingle attire.
Moustache included?
Does Tingle have a mustache?
Doesn't he have like a weird
Yeah, he's got that little
wiry-
thin-
I should know this. We used to have an
He's
office
got that thin
full of
mustache,
Tingles.
He has a stupid little,
Yeah,
like this kind of thing.
Yeah.
with
Here's- this is the-
Steve's,
There's no mustache. included.
Oh my god, that's
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah,
That is
Link-
a powerful outfit.
Link wearing a Tingle outfit is very intense.
That's definitely
Yeah.
worth $20 or something. Or whatever it is.
Yeah, there's a few other outfits that have different abilities to them, but the sort of map upgrade stuff was like, that's cool, and I'm glad that Nintendo priced it the way they did. I don't know how people in general are feeling about it, but I feel like knowing that they're working on additional narrative DLC, and for the cost of that, you in the meantime will sort of get like an appetizer course of DLC.
Yep.
Is how I'm picturing this. Like, that's fine. I don't mind that my Zelda game, because I paid for the DLC, will just at some point soon
Have more
just
things. in
drop
it. Yeah.
more stuff that slightly changes the game experience. Like, great, that's fine. That's fine with me.
Yep. I was very surprised.
Yeah.
bent swords.
I wonder what I meant.
Yeah, I know. I'm very.
We'll find out.
It's very perplexing.
I'll go back
in
and
the
listen
next
to it.
DLC.
Yeah. Also, Master Sword bending unlocked. What?
For attacking around corners and stuff.
Should I read the incredibly intellectual video game reader mail, or should I read the reader mail about getting drunk?
Probably both of those.
Go in the order you just described.
yeah,
Probably.
That's
So,
that's what I'm gonna do.
That's the normal order of how those.
Oh,
things progress.
one real quick Zelda thing. It is, I guess, a spoiler to say that this Zelda game, like many, has the Lost Woods in it.
Oh yeah.
The Lost Woods works in a way and feels like what I thought the Lost Woods would work like and feel like when I first heard that was even a place you could go in a Zelda game.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it.
I knew you would. If you remember on the podcast like 3 weeks ago or whatever,
You talked
I
about-
was like, "Oh, Jake, you're really gonna like this." Yeah, it's really, really good. I forgot to talk about the game that I played while I was sick. I don't know
one
where I'm
about,
going with this sentence,
skiing?
but I played Zelda 1 for the first time since I was a child,
Oh, okay.
like a very young child. I loaded up Zelda 1. Oh man, is that game still really, really good? And I have to say, I only ever played that game as like an 8-year-old.
Okay.
I never.
Did you play it on Virtual Console or something? Where did you? Or,
Yeah.
Okay.
I never played it as
an adult.
As an adult that
Yeah.
had a history of like being able to understand what a video game was. I was shocked because my memory of playing that game was I don't know where I'm going. I'm completely lost. This world seems like entirely unknowable, and I'm just gonna stumble around for hours and basically get nothing done. I never beat it. It was just that game where I get lost in the woods,
Right.
and it's entirely mysterious. Man, that game is actually like from a modern context, like actually having just played Breath of the Wild, like, oh man, I mean, this is an obvious thing to say because they did make that direct connection in their GDC talk and everything, but like it really does feel like Breath of the Wild in the sense that like, yeah, you can just immediately go anywhere, but the world is designed in such a way that you're not really stumbling around. I found the first dungeon in maybe like 5 minutes, And I was so happy because I thought, oh my God, I lucked into finding this thing. But then I just found the next one like 10 minutes from then. I was just knocking down stuff and it was still really enjoyable. And it was fun to play that game as an adult who knew how to play a game and had some, idea what the hell to do. It really still holds up a lot. It's really, really good.
Nice.
Yeah. Anyway, reader mail.
And now the intellectual email.
Yes.
Channel some intellectual voice from
Oh, I
somewhere.
think you would need to do
Spaff.
that.
Oh, because I'm the most intellectual.
yeah,
I'm the
no.
least intellectual.
Yeah, here. This
Because
is a long
you're from
one.
a country that isn't this one.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. My intellectual
Yeah, this is
prowess.
from Kevin Hainline.
Kevin Hainline
Rubik's
says, Hey,
hello.
Thumbs. Recently, I read this article. Would you like me to read out the URL for this article?
You can.
What is the article in general?
It's called What's the Matter with Covert Action?
Okay.
It's about the Sid Meier game Covert Action, discussing how the game had some issues that made it less successful than Meier's earlier work. It's a good read, but what I mostly was excited to read in the article had to do with the academic debate that the article summarized between ludologists, theorists who see games primarily as dynamic systems, and narratologists who see games primarily as narratives.
Uh-huh.
There's a quote by a developer, he worked on Eastern Front 1941 and Balance of Power, Chris Crawford, from December of 1987, where he writes in support of ludology, discussing process intensity, which he defines as the degree to which a program emphasizes processes instead of data. He writes... How long is this thing? Okay. He writes... The most powerful resistance to process intensity, though, is unstated. It is a mental laziness that afflicts all of us. Process intensity is so very hard to implement. Data intensity is easy to put into a program. Just get that artwork into a file and read it onto the screen, store that sound effect on the disk, and pump it out to the speaker. There's instant gratification in these data-intensive approaches. It looks and sounds great immediately. Process intensity requires all those hours mucking around with equations because it's so indirect, you're never certain how it will behave. The results always look so primitive next to the data-intensive stuff, so we follow the path of least resistance right down to data intensity. I think that it's really interesting that the tension in video games over simulation versus narrative has been raging since the 80s, and still seems to form the core tension that Idle Thumbs explores. You've responded so well to Breath of the Wild because of the process intensity, and not really the narrative. I have never once heard you describe the storyline for Far Cry 2, but you've talked about it so often because of what might happen as a result of the intertwining systems. Do you think that this is an accurate assessment of your aesthetic desires? Do you think that you're just drawn more into games as weird systems? Where does a LucasArts adventure game or even an Uncharted play into this debate? Thanks for all the casts, Kevin Hainline. Rubik's Cube on Idle Forums.
This is an intense email because, man, Ludology versus Narratology was like, the internet was just shitting itself like over this when Idle Thumbs, the website, was first around in like the sort of mid 2000s. Like we've talked about, I can't remember how to pronounce Jesper Juhl.
Jesper Juhl, yeah. We did it.
Like I remember he in the sort of mid 2000s was the torchbearer of sort of games academia and the sort of Ludology, and then there were a bunch of the sort of like, I think it was sort of pre-modern indie game adventure game developers, like the sort of like guys who were making like all the sort of Sherlock Holmes games and Siberia and The Longest Journey. I feel like we're like, how dare you, blah blah blah. Like what is like getting very uppity about the power of narrative and these things. And I don't know how to talk about it on Idle Thumbs because the things that we talk about on this show all the time, the stuff that we get the most excited about is the sort of cavalcade of systems that are stumbling over themselves to create a gameplay experience. But the sort of games that we all make are super narrative heavy games. Like Nick and I both worked at Telltale for a while. I worked there way longer than you. You work at Double Fine, which is known though for adventure games and story heavy stuff, even though obviously there's more system stuff, but the pedigree of that studio is narrative. Steve Gaynor left Idle Thumbs to make to invent the walking simulator. And you know, like Chris and I work at Campo Santo, which basically, I mean, our game like Gone Home has physics in it, and it has all sorts of things that sort of borrow the aesthetics of a systems-heavy game, but is very narrative and content-focused. And I don't know how to... Like, I wish Chris was actually here for this question, because I feel like he'd be better at untangling this.
I guess the question was, do you feel like that accurately describes your desires? And it kind of...
I guess it kind of does, I don't want to put too much on old Fear 2017, or Prey. Fuck. They're all the same. They're all the same. They're all the goddamn same. Fear. Remember Fear? I was thinking about Steve.
You were thinking about Steve, and then you thought about Fear.
Whenever I think of Steve Gaynor, I think of Fear. That's the opening line of Full Throttle Remastered.
I feel like a lot of the, when you're talking about the things that you are and you're getting excited about them, is because you have all these adventures and stories and things that happen to you that don't happen to anybody else.
Yeah.
And those narrative-driven things are, more or less the same for everybody in terms of what's delivered to you.
Yeah, I think narrative games are bad podcast content for sure. Even though I'll go play one and spend the few hours that it takes to get through a narrative experience and enjoy it. But it's not. Why would I talk about it on a podcast?
Well, like talking about Edith Finch earlier, right? It's really hard to just sit and go, "Oh, look, this cool thing happened to me when I played it," without kind of really worrying about what you're spoiling for people, or basically that.
It's also tough because like the things you might get in if you were on like a more sort of film critical discussion podcast is how that fits into sort of the creator or team's other work, or sort of getting into a thematic discussion or getting into the execution of specific moments. But that's also predicated on the assumption that your audience is then all going to go out and pay just a few dollars and spend a couple hours in their seats and watch that movie. I just don't think that people consume narrative games with the voracity that film enthusiasts consume film, so it's hard to talk about those games in that way.
It's also much harder unless everybody has played all the way through.
Yes.
Like if you're doing a true book club, then everybody reads the section and then you'll discuss that section. Whereas if it's one person saying, "Hey, I played this story game, let me tell you about it."
Well, and even within that though, like so many story games branch, or you can't possibly consume.
We
the
actually
exact
tried
same
it
set of
as
content,
an experiment when Her Story came out, because everyone. Man, I can't remember who was on that episode. Were you on the Her Story spoiler cast?
Maybe.
I know Chris and Danielle sort of headed that up because people just kept asking for us to talk about Her Story in a full blown form. So we said, okay, we're going to do a split off episode that is a Her Story spoiler cast, and the people who had completed Her Story and could listen to a Her Story spoiler cast went, "Oh wow, thanks." But like the audience at large, it just didn't. It's so hard to do, I think.
Right.
But I mean, also. People are just going to put dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of hours into a Souls game, or into Breath of the Wild, or into a Far Cry or Spelunky in a way that you just don't with a narrative game. So it just gives you... they're just different. I mean, Chris and I wish Chris was here again, because we've talked a lot about like...
Yeah, you guys...
Is there actually a sort of like impermeable boundary between... those two styles of games? Because you sort of have games that start with a narrative or with a sort of like a high concept or with a world, and they'll sort of push systems farther and farther and farther out, but really the core motivator of it is this is the experience that we want players to get through. Or you have games that start I forgot Chris Crawford's words from the 80s, and I'm sorry about that, but or you have games that start very much from clearly some systemic goals and some prototyping and design experimentation and an aim to create a simulated set of systems and mechanics that a player can explore, and then you can maybe bolt mechanics in a world on top of those that sort of, but like, top down or bottom up. Is your high concept sort of narrative and story based one, or is it a mechanics based one? And I wonder if it is like two asymptotic curves that will never actually cross over, even though you can have the games that have one thing in the service of the other, but I don't know if there's not that many where both actually completely harmoniously coexist.
That's true. I mean, yeah, and a lot of this just comes down to personal taste.
Which games exist? And I'm sorry, this is not a rhetorical question. This is a genuine question. Which games exist where people talk about, oh God, then this crazy thing happened, then this happened, then I did this, and then did that, and then this crazy thing happened in the story, and I learned this thing about my player character that was really emotionally moving. That doesn't; those two things don't happen.
I mean,
GTA, but not really, because
you're
it's
just playing
like a
those GTA, like the walls up
story.
inside the game itself. Those walls are almost impermeable. Where you're like you're playing an open world thing, then you hit a story mission, and you literally are just watching a cutscene. Like I don't like it. Like it's interesting to have been playing this little bit of. I mean, I guess immersive sims are kind of the games that try to bridge that gap.
Yeah,
And like this new Prey seems like they're very markedly trying to sort of, by flowing the game up and down between the sort of Half-Life and the immersive sim thing. But then again, you can sort of feel.
I can
the
see
game
why
is
he,
up and up and
I
down.
can see why he brought up Uncharted. I mean,
Yeah.
but that game's systems, I feel like, probably don't really.
Uncharted,
More or less everybody's playthrough of that game is
Uncharted
more or less
systems
the
are
same.
there
Yeah.
to get you like they're sort of just like pacing
I mean,
food.
you know what? Like Half-Life 2 Episode 1 was poking at this a little bit, right? I mean, like that game's systems are.
Half-Life 2 Episode 2, even more maybe, right? That's the one that
Yeah.
ends with the big car chase.
But I mean, with Alex following you around in Episode 1, you have a character that's sort of building up without, throwing up a cutscene. But then also, it's a weird, crazy game.
I'm sure people who are listening to this episode are just screaming a bunch of like.
well, maybe you'll get a
probably.
ton of reader mail
About
now.
like,
No, you know what?
either games
I hope people
or
do write in about it,
critical
yeah.
thought or whatever. Like for people who make a bunch of this stuff,
questions.
questions at idlethumbs.net. Like it's
.net.
actually. It's tough because on its face, the sort of ludology versus narratology thing, I'm kind of exhausted.
Yeah, yeah, of
at
course.
this point.
Well-
but like, just teasing out how these things work inside your brain as a player of games is the thing that I'm interested in a less academic and more just sort of like colloquial. Let's talk about it way. I guess I don't know.
I'm sure people will write in and say that Dark Souls is the perfect example of this, but I
don't think
I
that
would
you-
prefer people, if you're going to write in, to please let's move off of Dark Souls. We've talked enough about Dark Souls and sort of
That's also different.
It is different,
I think.
and that's why I hope people write in about other games because I would be interested.
It seems like the way that you engage with Dark Souls, the sort of fiction of the person that you're playing as is not emotionally interesting. It's what's happening to you and your emotions and the world of the game, but there's like the middle piece of like,
who are you and like what do you want? And
that seems like what narrative games are often more about is like not necessarily creating empathy because that's also a really dangerous goal to tread in, but just sort of like a feeling of suspension of disbelief that bridges the gap between you and your character, or you and, if there's not a character, sort of the world that you're inside of and the events that are happening there, and you being swept up inside of those events the same way that you are in less interactive stuff.
Yep.
But that coexisting with, and then I used the goo gun to put a thing on the wall, and I was able to ricochet my arrow and unlock a door I wasn't supposed to unlock. The disconnect that you usually end up in is the designer going, and then a player's going to unlock a door they're not supposed to unlock, and the game going, aha, you've unlocked the door you weren't supposed to unlock, and you go, well, I was supposed to unlock it, because if the game literally explicitly had the dialogue, once you put that explicit narrative content in, it makes the systemically random actually just a pachinko machine to unlock a bunch of sort of predetermined content.
Yep.
And I don't know how you bridge those. True AI, that's the answer. I'm sorry if I'm accidentally like going off into space or crapping on someone's game somewhere, or like a school of thought. I'm not professing to be any expert or person about it. It's just a thing. It's a thing to think about all the time.
It's interesting. I hope people do write in.
Yeah, please do.
Because I would like.
Let's continue the narratology versus ludology debate.
Yeah.
No, don't call it that though, please.
No, yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting.
That'll give Chris a chance to come back
It'll
and be
give
like,
Chris a
why
chance
is
to
the inbox full of this
Chris
stuff?
will be like, you guys talked about what on the show? That's all our reader mail is now?
Crawford.
You talked about the canceled Prey in 1987, Chris Crawford.
We need JP on this show.
Oh, man, yeah, that's true.
You have to read us your drunken email now.
Oh, I think we're...
No. You can't tease
all
that.
right. Well,
tease that and then not deliver.
It's a very simple email. This is from Matt. He says, there's a bar arcade in Chicago that I frequent that has, among other things, a Tetris cabinet, and I love playing that game while a little bit drunk. Are there any games you enjoy or even prefer while a little bit drunk?
I don't
That's
usually
very sweet.
Yeah, I don't usually play games when I'm a little bit drunk. But what's yours, Nick?
Oh, it's just Dark Souls.
Okay.
Because it
drunk.
allows my brain to kind of like stop thinking just enough to actually focus on the sort of reactive stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
How about you, Nick? I mean, Spaff. I mean, Chris.
I mean, Dark Souls.
I mean,
it's just
I mean, something like Johann Sebastian Joust. JS
man.
Joust.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that.
like
That's
Nidhogg
probably
and
more
just
fun.
sort of like
You know, if you fall over, you're gonna hurt less. It's gonna be fine. That kind of thing.
yeah.
No,
when you're just alone.
I'm more likely to just be high whilst playing games.
Oh.
That's way more interesting. I recommend that. That guy, whatever his name was.
You recommend drugs?
I recommend medicine.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
My answer was easy. So
Just all games for Nick.
Yeah,
Any game,
that's true.
every
That's
game I've
true.
ever
No,
played.
it's not true.
Nick Brecken.
no, I actually generally don't like playing most games drunk. For me, it's just with
Drunk
Dark
would
Souls,
make it
it
really
really it
hard.
softens the blow of failing in that game, and also just focuses the mind. It's
Right.
it's really yeah. It's really just that game.
Is there a YouTuber? Probably is, that just gets drunk and plays.
Oh, God.
Is there a
games?
YouTuber who gets drunk?
But
Spaff?
that okay. But
Is
then
there? Yes.
that also is
Drunk.
interesting when that happens. Is
If
that
you know
a
of
thing?
one, write us
Yeah.
at questions
not me.
at idlethumbs.net. It's not Nick.
Isn't it?
Nope. Not even close.
All right.
You're calling it?
I think that's the end of this podcast.
Yes.
Thanks for listening to Idle Thumbs. You can find, oh God, wow, we need Chris so bad. We're on Twitter at Idle Thumbs. We're on,
You're just getting increasingly desperate. We're on Twitter.
you can find us on Twitter at Idle Thumbs. All of the videos of all of our episodes are posted to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/idlevideos. There's links to our Twitch, our Facebook, a billion other things at idlethumbspodcast.com. If you like this show, which is now a monthly show because we do too many podcasts, you please do tell a friend about it. We still put an episode out every month, as well as a Patreon Q&A, like exclusive mailbag weird episode in between. Another one of those is coming very soon. Tell your friends about our stupid show, or rate us on iTunes if you like us. Also, if you haven't listened to our other podcast, Important If True, we do that every week. It's a ruckus mess of just, I don't even know how to describe what that podcast is.
Take the games out?
It's not even
This.
that. It's
No.
like strange things in pop culture that we find and are fascinated by to the point of self-destruction.
Yeah.
People writing us in asking for personal advice or advice to untangle weird things that have bothered them.
Strange stories.
On this last week's episode of Important If True, Davey Reedon, who made the Stanley Parable and the Beginner's Guide, asked us a question about the intricacies and rules of the genie in Aladdin that had been bugging him since he was a child, and we were really happy to unwrap that. It turns out that the genie is afraid of commitment and was in a codependent relationship.
Spoilers.
Well, we'll find out. But check that out.
Yeah,
And is that all of our podcast for now?
I think so.
Spaff, thanks for being the new Chris.
No problem.
Nick, thanks for being the new Jake.
You're welcome.
I'm Jake Rodkin.
This is Idle Thumbs.
This is Idle Thumbs. Bye.
Bye.
Do a thing.
Okay, so, whew.